How is everybody doing? It is Johnny Real along with...
This is Edward Silverscreen signing in. How's it going, folks?
And it is Friday, October 12th, as we are wide awake and we are ready for this episode. We are on episode 6 now.
Man, we've didn't really think that we'd truly get just going and rolling on this.
Everything has been rolling super fast. Like we said here at the beginning of the show, it is another episode of the Cine-Men movie podcast here. Hope you have a great week.
So far pretty dang good actually.
Week. Getting ready for the weekend. On some serious notes, and I know a lot of people out there didn't expect it, but truthfully, it is big news and very serious. We need to talk about that. Them Longhorns won this past weekend. Texas won 48-45.
Yeah, and the big upset, you know, can't lie.
Put the gun down, Edward.
Yeah. Oh no, can't lie. Pretty mad about it, but it's all right. We'll come back next year stronger. But on a big good news, we fired Mike Stoops finally. Sorry about y'all who liked him. I doubt there's really anybody out there.
So it's good news now that the motherfucker is out in the unemployment line trying to get on them food stamps. So it's good news. Fuck you, Mike Stoops.
And you, Austin Kendall. Sorry.
And Dicker the kicker. I'm sure Oklahoma fans don't like you right about now.
Well, I've got to give it to the kid. I mean, 18-year-old kid kicking a game-winning field goal. You know, I've got to give it to the kid. That would have been intimidating at the very least. But it's not what we're here for. We're here for movies and all things entertainment. Yes,
and
sports entertainment. But, yeah.
Speaking of entertainment, we were able to check out WWE 2K19 came out this past weekend.
Ooh.
And night and day difference compared to last year's game. Very fun. If you guys like wrestling games, I insist you on getting this one. But on our minds this week, we are finishing up a huge episode of last week. Let's recap Halloween episode from last week. What did you think?
I thought it was good. I mean, honestly, I'd say one of our top 2 easily. I mean, I know that's, you know, only 5 out of all this, but still top 2, honestly. Just because we were very excited for that episode. We were looking forward to it. We were just ultimately just raring and ready to go for that. Simple. But yeah, I've got to say I was very happy with it. Simple as that.
Good film. We had a lot of good praise on it.
So far, yeah.
Today we are covering A Nightmare on Elm Street. And this movie is a little bit different from the ones we've done in the past. We've done Psycho, we've done The Shining, we've done Killer Clowns, Halloween, Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Wow, I almost forgot that one. But as we get into this episode, any recent watches lately? Anything that's caught your eye? Whether it be TV, recent movie?
Not really watched anything. The only thing that has actually caught my mind was the death of the man who played Herschel Walker from The Walking Dead over the weekend. So
we were going to touch on that in some movie news, but that's interesting. Go ahead and bring that up. I mean, go ahead and talk about that now.
It's kind of crazy, you know. I mean,
introduced in what was it, season 3, right?
Yeah, season 3 when they went to the farmhouse, met Maggie and Herschel, and truthfully I forget the sister's name because it's been a while. But yeah, and I mean now Walking Dead, I'm pretty sure, is on season 9. Saying it's Rick's final episodes. Literally, that's what aired the other day.
Now, a lot of TV series, a lot of people are doing that now, where they're announcing that this could be the character's final episodes.
Which was funny.
I know they're probably doing that for the rating, and they want people to tune in live as the episode is airing instead of catching it on Hulu or catching it on Netflix, however it goes. But
oh yeah, but still, I mean, hey,
there's no surprises anymore.
Not really, and I mean, there is, because you always wonder how is the person going to, you know, is he going to get slain? Is he going to get eaten and turned into a walker? You know, because I mean, with Scott Wilson, the man who played Herschel, you know, he got his leg cut off, and they're like, oh my god, he's going to turn in, and eventually they he got bitten on the leg. I'm sorry, got bitten on the leg. Then they had to amputate his leg, and eventually he was good. And then fate had different plans for him basically. But died at 76. But yeah, I find that very weird. That they're kind of like shoving it in your face in a way, but maybe a different marketing strategy, maybe a different type to entrance fans. Because apparently, Walking Dead, I'm not sure. This isn't fact, so don't hate me for this one. But apparently, The Walking Dead isn't going to be on for too many more seasons. Like I've heard there's not many more seasons coming, like maybe 2 tops, but we'll see.
Yeah, that is one. A lot of these TV series that's been on for 8, 9 seasons. I know The Big Bang Theory is in their last season now at season 12. Not that many more TV shows have more than 8, 9 seasons. It's very hard to find a good TV show that can run that long for that length of period of time.
Definitely, and especially with quality episodes all the time. Because
and with writers and directors getting fired, and so many directors doing a season, it's different. But on other news today, like my recent watches so far, I did finish my Halloween franchise. I've watched Halloween 4, 5, 6, and H2O. And then I took a shit on Halloween Resurrection. I recently watched Ocean's 8.
Oh, there you go.
With Sandra Bullock, and Rihanna's in that one.
This is kind of
Anne Hathaway. Okay. It's really put together. It was put together really, really well. The female cast, I wasn't too sure how they would cope on screen, or how serious it would be, or how funny it would be. But it was really, really good. I enjoyed it. If you enjoyed all the other Ocean's movies, you'll enjoy this one. It wasn't as good as the first one. I'm not talking about the original one from like the 60s or 70s, but I'm talking about it wasn't as good
original
as
George Clooney.
The George Clooney one. But it was good. They kind of teased that maybe
a crossover. Right?
No, because spoiler alert. In the movie, Sandra Bullock is Ocean's cousin.
Oh, cousin. Okay.
Or sister. You're right, sister. And she gets out of prison, but he's been dead, and he's dead.
Oh, dang.
Supposedly, but the end kind of indicates that maybe he's not, and maybe they'll team up if they do another one.
I mean, don't get me wrong, that would be a huge okay, what more can you do? I mean, Ocean's, heisted all these things with George Clooney, and I mean, Sandra Bullock, I haven't seen it myself, but probably pulled off a pretty big heist.
Yeah. It was good for what it was. I definitely would like to see some more going into it. I like heist movies.
Mm-hmm.
Some of the better movies for me are like, I enjoy heist movies, gangster movies.
Gotcha.
Which brings me to the next one I saw. I saw this yesterday, and it was Gotti with John Travolta, and it was one of those movies I don't think really was in theaters. And if it was in select theaters. It didn't have too much hype about it.
Right.
And I thought it was going to be I thought it was going to be bad, but I bought it anyway because I like gangster movies, and I really, really enjoyed it. There's a lot of flash back and forward scenes, like it'll go to a scene from the 80s, and then it'll jump to a scene from him being in the 60s, and then it'll go to a scene with him being in the 90s when he's in prison. I mean, there's a lot of back and forth scenes, but other than that, it was a pretty decent movie. I'm glad I bought it. I'm gonna watch it again.
There you go.
And I'd highly recommend it to anybody who enjoys some gangster films.
All right. I mean, I can't really forget about this one because this is kind of a Disney Halloween classic for a lot of people. But Hocus Pocus, did see that?
You watched that?
Yeah. Kind of
we debated.
Favorite,
we debated a lot this year on if we would do Hocus Pocus as one of our spooky season kind of movies.
Right.
We didn't fit it in this year. We didn't do Hocus Pocus, but it's definitely one of those movies that I'll be watching soon. Everybody out there listening to this, I'm sure if you enjoy horror movies or Halloween time, you're probably already watched it or going to keep watching it.
Oh yeah. And plus, I think they just came out with the Steelbook, didn't they?
Steelbook came out.
Which looks amazing.
They recently did the, I think they did the Hocus Pocus on Broadway.
Oh, yeah.
It's supposed to be like a second adaptation or whatever. But speaking of, I forgot one that I actually did watch. I watched Paranorman.
Oh, yeah?
Animated, kind of spooky Halloween kid. Supposed to be friendly, supposed to be family-friendly movie. But it was kind of a dark. Like, my little daughter watched it, and she kind of closed her eyes at some of the scenes. It was a little dark for it to be a family movie.
I mean, it is Tim Burton, though. So,
true.
You know.
Later on in the show, we are going to touch bases on what we will be getting to for the rest of the year. All of November, the rest of December. So, and our top 5 is coming up.
Definitely.
We can't forget to mention everybody who's been listening to the show, who has been, whether it be YouTube, Podbean, who is being interactive on everything we do on Facebook. Thank you so much. You can find us on Facebook at Movie Reels 405.
Just Facebook search it.
Facebook search it. We're on YouTube. All of our shows are on YouTube and Podbean. So we're out there. Keep continuing to support the show. Like us, share us. And when we get back, we will do some movie news. And we are here with some movie news for the Cine-Men movie podcast. And let's not forget, Venom came out this past weekend.
Definitely. Along
with A Star is Born. So those movies, we have personally not seen them yet, but they are out. Opening weekend, the box office was definitely shattered this past weekend, but it wasn't as big as Sony wished for Venom. Venom opened up with $80 million weekend. So
not bad. I mean, honestly, not bad. Still.
And then in second place, believe it or not, is Smallfoot, the kid animated movie, with $42.8 million opening weekend.
Not bad.
And then A Star is Born is grossing around $42.6 million for opening weekend. None of those are bad.
I don't know.
When you have Venom opening up as well as a very nice kid-friendly movie, I think Bradley Cooper and A Star is Born, I think all that cast and crew is probably happy with where they're at right now. It probably could have been a bigger opening weekend, but...
Yeah, but I mean, not every opening weekend can be like, Infinity Wars or Star Wars. I mean, it all can't be.
Next weekend, they would have, if they did set up for October 12th, it would have been, next week is October 12th, and First Man and Bad Times at El Royale, those are the two big movies opening up October 12th. So you have a lot of movies coming out soon, and then October 19th is, of course, Halloween 2018. Beautiful Boy, which I saw the trailer for this earlier, starring Steve Carell, and this movie looks really, really good. It's gotten high praise. The Rotten Tomato score is already in the 90s. I think IMDb is giving it an 8. So Beautiful Boys comes out October 19th, along with Jonah Hill's the director, and the movie is mid-90s. This is a movie, if you have not seen the trailer, I highly recommend you going and seeing the trailer, because mid-90s looks so good, and I really think that First Man, mid-90s, and Beautiful Boy are going to be movies that gets a lot of Oscar talk, including A Star is Born. So,
which actually, there's another one that comes to mind. They just released another poster, I should say, for the upcoming Glass with Samuel L. Jackson, James McAvoy, and then Bruce Willis. Of course, continuing Split, which is continuing Unbreakable, exactly. So that one's always one to look forward to.
When is that? Is that a January release?
January 18th, if I'm not mistaken. January 18th should be.
And then in other news right now, This is just a rumor I saw literally probably about 15 minutes ago, but it's a very heavy rumor to be talked about right now. Jack O'Connell is rumored to be the Batman. It looks like Ben Affleck might be out for good. Jack O'Connell is rumored and is in talks with DC to be the new Batman. He has done movies like Money Monster. He was Kyle. Have you seen Money Monster?
Not Money Monster, no.
He was the guy who was trying to rob and shoot.
He was also in Unbroken.
He was in Broken as Lewis, and he was also in 300 Rise of Empire. Some of those are the only movies that's really big that he's been in. Other than that, he's not really been big for anything, but if you really want to see him kind of break out, a really good breakout role for him would be Money Monster. I highly recommend it. Julia Roberts, George Clooney, and Jack O'Connell as Kyle. So that's not that bad of a cast.
He kind of looks the part for it. Kind of a clean-shaven guy.
So take it for a grain of salt at what it might be, but it looks like he is in heavy talks with DC to be. I don't know if he's going to be the next Batman, but he is rumored to be Batman in the movie The Batman, which was supposed to be Ben Affleck. So,
we'll see on that.
In other news, really, that's pretty much most of what we got going for you. Not a lot to touch bases on right now. So we are getting ready to get into A Nightmare on Elm Street. But which leads us into our top 5.
Definitely got to get that out of the way before we truly get into anything.
So what we planned on doing is usually we'll both have 2 different top 5 films or top 5 lists, but this week we're just putting our heads together and we'll do our top 5 Nightmare on Elm Street movies. So we'll start off with 5 and then go our way up to which one we think is the best. So starting off the list at episode number 5 is, for me, is A Nightmare on Elm Street 2, Freddy's Revenge.
Definitely. Oh yeah, pretty good movie overall.
I
mean, continues kind of. Well, I mean, it's not incredibly.
Pretty much the base of this movie is, the family moves into Nancy's old house, and the kid keeps continuing to have nightmares after nightmares, and leads into Freddy coming back and coming into which is now supposedly the house he's haunting. So it's a little off for me. It's really the only one that continues in with Nancy's house. The other ones have the house listed and they talk about the houses, but it's not. I mean, that's not his house, so I don't know why they keep tying that house into some of these movies.
I think I've actually got the answer for that, because I like to watch a lot of paranormal stuff, as in like Ghost Adventures and Ghost Hunters and stuff like that. So, okay, if you go by the logic that they try to put out there about hauntings and all that, you actually get items that are of the person's either A, personal life, or B, part of how they died or what they used to do any malicious acts, which of course, getting into the film a tiny bit, a drop of it here, is he was a child murderer, essentially. Well, he used that claw probably to kill kids. So, with the claw being there, more than likely, that's part of his soul, if you will, and that's why it's the haunting of the house. I don't know what happens to the glove after 2. I don't truly remember it right off topic, or right offhand.
Well, they never mention the glove. They never mention the glove as it being a different kind of, whether he uses a different glove or not. But Nightmare 2 is coming in at number 5. Number 4, I have Freddy's Dead: The Final Nightmare, which this one ties into. So the storyline is a little bit smarter for me. The kid who continues to have dreams is a homeless kid, and supposedly he's the last of the kids that live on Elm Street. Supposedly all the other houses are kind of condemned on Elm Street, but he's the last of his kind, supposedly. The next, the other storyline in this movie is you get to meet Freddy's daughter. Freddy's daughter is in the film. You get a little bit more backstory on Freddy and how he technically became Freddy. You get more. Robert Englund gets more skin time in this movie, as you will, with him not having any of the makeup on.
Which, actually, I've heard there's like 2 different storylines for her. One to where she kills him, and then another to where she kind of becomes like a sidekick, is what I've heard.
Well, she supposedly kills him in the movie. So,
because I don't remember if the sidekick is in like one of the comic books he's featured in or what have you, but yeah. So I thought that was a pretty cool thing.
The number 3 I have coming in is Wes Craven's New Nightmare. This is the
2010 remake.
No, this is the 1990. What to say? It's 1994. He wrote and directed Wes Craven's New Nightmare. This is the one where it is Wes Craven in this movie. He's gonna put together a new Nightmare movie, and as they're on set, bad things start happening.
Oh, okay.
People
so it's kind of a fourth wall kind of break thing.
It's
like production of a film in a
real
film.
things are happening in this while they're filming this movie.
Okay.
She's having bad nightmares while filming the movie.
Which
the new claw that they have for Freddy is coming to life. It's a robotic arm. It's one of the lengthier Nightmare movies. It's almost at 2 hours and 15, 2 hours and 10 minutes. But it's very well put together for me. Freddy has a new look. He has a new air about him. They redo some of the murder scenes in the original movie. A New Nightmare is just, to me, is just a different kind of movie, just because it feels like it's something that everybody's played by the original characters.
Right.
Heather Langenkamp is in it. She goes by Heather in the movie. Robert Englund goes by Robert Englund in the movie. Wes Craven is actually in the movie as Wes Craven because he's directing the new movie.
That's kind of funny.
And then at number 2, we have a Nightmare on Elm Street 3, The Dream Warriors. This is a movie, to me, that if you're going to watch any of them that's not the original, watch this one.
Definitely. And I mean, honestly, on top of that, like, if you've never even watched any of them, if you're a rock fan, I mean, you know, Dokken with Dream Warriors, that's always a great song, honestly. Or, I mean, even if you're a rap fan, you know, there's, going off a little bit, but there's Will Smith and Jazzy Jeff's Nightmare on My Street, for that matter. Which is, honestly, I think a little underrated. I think it was pretty good lyric-wise. And storytelling-wise, for that matter.
You can find that song if you want on Spotify, or if you have the Will Smith Greatest Hits album, that's also on there.
Boom.
But Dream Warriors is a different kind of nightmare. Nancy comes back into the scene, into the scenery, and she's trying to help these kids who are at kind of like a crazy hospital get past their nightmares.
Right.
A lot of Freddy's famous lines that you've heard him use throughout, you know, memes and stuff. A lot of his famous lines originated from this movie. To me, this movie is where Freddy gets his personality from. 1, he's kind of just a big bad boogeyman in your dreams. 2, it's almost the same thing. He haunts Jesse and he's in Jesse's body. So 2 is kind of, but 3 is where Freddy really gets to do a lot of acting, and Robert Englund really develops a personality for Freddy. And then, finishing out the top 5, the original, the classic, Nightmare on Elm Street. It doesn't get creepier than that.
Definitely, because, you know, just seeing this for the first time in a while, I mean, it's been a few years, but yeah, just seeing this for the first time in a while, I'm going to say it was a good kind of a callback, I guess you'd say, to it. Just going back, rewatching it, and kind of having it fresh on your mind. This was kind of a nice little baked potato right there. It's definitely a good steak.
Nightmare on Elm Street is definitely one that everybody should be visiting this year, especially since, man, it came out in 1984. The budget was $1.8 million, and man, as far as budget goes, the past few movies that we've done, it's been a pretty big budget.
Let's say, yeah, probably the biggest budget we've encountered yet.
That's true. And then the opening weekend, it made almost its money back at around $130 million opening weekend, or you might as well say $1.3 million made that money back. And then gross-wise was the $25 million range. So what we're doing here is Wes Craven. The guy is a horror genius.
Definitely.
A lot of the movies he's done in the past is just nothing but horror highlight reel, if you can call him. He's pretty much what he is a horror highlight reel. So as we're here, that's all we're covering today. This episode is all about A Nightmare on Elm Street.
The kids of Elm Street don't know it yet, but something is coming to get them.
There's something out there, isn't there?
We just see what's happening. What did happen to him? I don't know. The coroner got the same. Didn't have John puking since he saw it. They're gonna kill me for sure.
Did you do it?
There was somebody else there.
He was locked in a room with a girl who went in alive and came out in a rubber bag.
No one knows where it came from or who was it next.
Nancy? There's something wrong with you. You're imagining things.
Nightmare on Elm Street.
Do you believe in the boogeyman?
So here we are, episode 6. The Cine-Men Movie Podcast presents A Nightmare on Elm Street, directed by the human horror highlight reel, Wes Craven. Wes Craven is best known for some of his newer movies, but still, he's done some great horror movies. 1972, he did The Last House on the Left, which kind of put him on the map.
Definitely.
1977, The Hills Have Eyes. 1982, he did The Swamp Thing. 1984, he did The Hills Have Eyes 2. And in that same year, he did 1984, Nightmare on Elm Street. 1991, he would do People Under the Stairs. Kind of really wouldn't do much until 94, where he did a Nightmare, Wes Craven's New Nightmare. And yes, this is probably the worst movie he's ever done. 1995, he did Vampire in Brooklyn.
Okay.
And then he's known for his Scream movies. He did Scream 1, 1996. Scream 2 was a 97 release. Scream 3 was a 2000 release. And then Scream 4 came out in 2011. And then he did My Soul to Take in 2010.
Oh, okay. Wow. I didn't realize that was him, actually.
And then after Scream 2011, he did pass away not too long after that, I believe in 2014.
Oh, yeah.
So, as we get to A Nightmare on Elm Street, a lot of these directors have a lot of every other thing in common.
Mm-hmm.
They use a smaller, unseasoned cast, if you will.
Right, definitely.
So, four friends. It opens up as four friends have nightmares. You are introduced to Tina, who is played by Amanda Weiss. Hasn't really done much before or after. She was in a couple of Cold Case Files. She was in a few Dexter episodes. Not too much for her going there. Her boyfriend is played by Rod, played by, I don't know if this is right, but Juice Garcia. He was in We Were Soldiers, Along Came Polly. Not really too big on some of the other stuff he's been in.
Right.
And then we get to the main character, played by Heather Langenkamp, Nancy, if you will. She was known for Nancy in A Nightmare on Elm Street. Also played Nancy in Nightmare on Elm Street 3, The Dream Warriors. She was in Wes Craven's New Nightmare. Played herself and played Nancy as well. Really hasn't done much since. She was in the new Hellraiser Judgment that came out earlier this year, along with she was in Truth or Dare.
Oh, okay.
And then her dad is played by John Saxton.
Right.
Lieutenant Thompson, played by John Saxton, was in Nightmare 1, 3, also was in Wes Craven's New Nightmare, and was alongside Bruce Lee in Enter the Dragon.
Hey, that's always a pretty good one.
And then there's this other guy that really hasn't done much since. Glenn was played by
I think he's a good actor, Johnny Depp. I mean, I've never heard of this guy. No, I'm just kidding.
Johnny
Of
Depp's
course.
film debut was in A Nightmare on Elm Street, and I find it kind of funny that nobody really, Wes Craven wasn't going to go with Johnny Depp. Didn't think it was his kind of movie until Wes Craven's daughter stepped up and said, "Hey, he looks dreamy. You should get him."
Which, I mean, maybe that specific line she used was what kind of hooked him onto, yeah, let's use this kid. Dreamy, especially dealing with this movie about dreams and about nightmares. Which, I mean, okay, if you don't know Johnny Depp, the name, the man, and of course all of his legacy, if you don't know that, you've been under a rock somewhere, and not even under a rock. The Rock even knows about Johnny Depp, for that matter. I mean, come on. You've got Edward Scissorhands. You've got every Pirates of the Caribbean movie. You've got tons of just hours and hours and hours of this guy acting on film.
What's Eating Gilbert Grape?
Oh, man. I mean, okay, if you don't know him, come on.
And then we can't forget the bad man himself, Robert Englund. Played Freddy Krueger. Robert Englund was Freddy in all the other adaptations except for the 2010 remake. He even played Freddy Krueger in Freddy vs. Jason, the New Line Cinema crossover, when New Line has rights to Jason now, so they were able to do that crossover.
Kind of cool.
So this movie, man, it's what everybody knows Freddy Krueger. No matter what you do, you can say that name and everybody knows who that is.
Oh yeah, and I mean,
I think out of all the movies we've covered, we're going to cover, out of all the horror villains, you could say, he's the one that's like, he is the Hulk Hogan of horror movies.
Pretty much, yeah. He's kind of a iconic classic because of how he's gone. Because okay, you've got Nick Castle, who played Michael Myers. All of them, you can't really compare the one person, because it's been the same guy.
They're not even past that though. Popularity wise of the character,
true.
None of them as popular as Freddy Krueger, I believe. And I actually looked up a survey online, and Freddy Krueger won by a landslide. I'm talking in the 80%. When it said who would you rather, as far as popularity goes, everybody knew who Freddy was. Number 2 was Chucky. Number 3 was Jason.
Okay.
And believe it or not, Michael Myers wasn't even on the list because people got confused with Mike Myers.
Oh, come on.
So Mike Myers is more popular than Michael Myers right now.
Oh, man. I mean, I can kind of see that, don't get me wrong, because, I mean, you can't really disassociate the two, except for one does comedy and some serious movies, the other does horror.
And then finishing out the top 5 was Jigsaw. So
really? They had Jigsaw before Michael Myers? Oh.
Jigsaw's a little bit more popular right now.
Not hating on the Saw series, but up until 3, 1, 2, and 3 were pretty dang good, kind of revolutionary a little bit. But after that, just stop. Just stop.
Have you seen Jigsaw?
No, but
it's pretty entertaining. It's like as far as the way he has understudy that picks up everything. So
that's the thing. Like after 3, it just really, I was just like, are we again?
You could almost say the same thing for Halloween, though.
You could even, yeah. But I mean, you could.
Those are the least, like, out of all the Halloween movies, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Couldn't make near. I think all 3 of them together couldn't make what 1 and 2 made by themselves.
True, but let's.
You could say that almost pretty much though for any other horror franchise. Like after 1, 2, or 3, they probably don't get much better than that.
Truthfully, after most franchises, because don't get me wrong, Fast and the Furious. I actually enjoyed Tokyo Drift. I did. But
it was a different story.
Fit.
It had a different.
Other than Han's character, it didn't really fit.
Tokyo Drift, though, even if they didn't make any more after Tokyo Drift, it was a breath of fresh air. It wasn't the same Dom, Letty, cop
Paul
versus bad guy.
Or Brian, I'm sorry.
I'm done with the Fast and Furious. The only thing that saved the Fast and Furious for me was The Rock.
I mean, yeah.
And then Jason Statham being a bad guy in it, it's pretty cool. But now, the one that they just came out with Charlize Theron, no.
It had too many James Bond elements in it. Because don't get me wrong, with the Fast and Furious, touching on that for a little bit, I will say that number one, of course, had to be my favorite. Simply because, and I mean, don't get me wrong, you could actually take a couple of your buddies and gather up tools, gather up parts, get some money, and you could actually have made some of those cars. But I digress, and I get back to the actual part of why we are here. Going into Freddy or A Nightmare on Elm Street, either one, I can't really think of A Nightmare on Elm Street or even a nightmare without Freddy. And then on top of that, the one little song I like is the one at the very end. The 1, 2, 3.
The rhyme?
Yeah, oh man. Creepy, turning the children's nursery rhyme or little nursery song, I guess you could say, into a very creepy, just, chilling
And then,
song.
like we've talked about almost in every episode in the past, the soundtrack. The score to this movie is one of the better ones, if you ask me, as far as the horror movies go. And then the movie poster. The original Nightmare on Elm Street movie poster, first off, she doesn't look like Nancy in the poster, but it is creepy, it is original, it is iconic, and we will have that movie poster up for you. It's already up on the Facebook page if you want to check us out at Facebook/search Movie Reels 405. The poster is already up. Another interesting thing that we have talked about in every single episode is this film was shot in 30 days.
Oh yeah.
In just 30 days, they were able to put this together.
Which then, on top of that, they did on set. You can actually go to the house and see Nancy's house. You can actually see Glenn's house across the street, and like 2 or 3 doors down on the left side. You can literally actually see those houses. I know that there's so many pictures up on social media, whether it be Instagram, Facebook, whatever, or you can go Google the Freddy Krueger or Nightmare on Elm Street house, and you'll find people taking pictures with the door, which I think it's funny that in this one the door is blue, but in the iconic ones and how most people would remember Freddy's house, or Nancy's house, sorry about that, it's a red door. I think it's funny on that, but hey.
I even think for maybe the second one, the door might have been blue. But let's get back to some interesting trivia, notes here, if you will. That the first time Robert Englund put the glove on, he cut himself.
Oh, wow.
The first time he tried it on, he cut himself. But
Don't
this
trust
movie,
yourself with scissors.
this movie was put out by New Line Cinema, who, if you know New Line Cinema, they've put out tons of horror movies since then. My Soul to Take was New Line Cinema. Most of the Jason movies, I believe, after Jason Takes Manhattan, was New Line Cinema. Some of the Freddy movies, I think most of the Freddy movies are New Line Cinema.
Pretty sure.
And it's funny because after A Nightmare on Elm Street was a huge hit and New Line Cinema finally got put on the map, they would call New Line Cinema the house that Freddy built.
Oh, there you go. That's pretty cool. I mean, that...
And then, if you've seen the movie, you realize how gory it kind of is for its time, and they used over 500 gallons of blood.
Ooh. That's... I mean, don't get me wrong, probably 250 or 300 was used for that Johnny Depp death scene, or Glenn death scene, for that matter.
And then if you were wanting to know what kind of day Robert Englund would have, it would always start off with a 3-hour makeup session.
Ooh,
It took 3 hours to get him to look the way he does.
Which, I mean... it technically kind of isn't a lot in some aspects, because I know it takes a long time for movie makeup of that degree, I guess you'd say, but apparently he didn't get a lot of sleep either, so he was kind of like the main character, Nancy.
And then, speaking of Nancy, it took, out of the 200 some odd women that Wes Craven went through and looked at for Nancy, Demi Moore auditioned.
Wow.
Courtney Cox auditioned.
Couple big names.
Tracy Gold, Claudia Wells, Jennifer Grey. If you don't know who Jennifer Grey is, she was Baby in Dirty Dancing. She was also in Red Dawn with Patrick Swayze. So out of all those girls that
Some big names.
Heather Langenkamp got Nancy, and it would change her life forever.
Definitely.
So getting into A Nightmare on Elm Street now, We've done the top 5. As far as this movie goes, what would probably be your one scene that just made the movie iconic for you? Like, what would probably be your favorite scene?
Probably Tina's death scene. The scene of her going in the dream and then coming out, or not coming out, I'm sorry. Then, it switching to Rod, and basically, Freddy's under the covers with her, thrashing around, trying to kill her. And she basically, open shirt, or open blouse, whichever, gets 4 huge slash marks down pretty much her chest and stomach area. And, Rod's there just like, oh my god, what's going on here? And she gets dragged up to the pretty much left side of the ceiling, and just blood is everywhere. I mean, either that or the Johnny Depp scene.
I think I'd have to agree with you. Those are the two most, to me, iconic scenes in the film. Also, along with the opening scene where she's going through, and to me, that opening is just different. You get to see Freddy making his glove, and the opening of the film is just pretty creepy with the soundtrack and all that. A Nightmare on Elm Street. It's something about a guy who haunts you in your dreams while you're trying to sleep and get ready. Being an adult now and realizing how much sleep is important.
Yeah.
You can kind of see where these kids and these people in the movie, man, when they're acting, you need your sleep.
Yeah, definitely.
And if somebody is in your dreams just haunting you and causing you not to get any of that,
yeah.
and how that day would be horrendous.
Well, I mean, sleep is very essential for the body's rejuvenation process, literally, because if you don't get enough sleep, your mind goes nuts, legitly. Because I think the longest anyone's ever stayed awake was 7 or maybe 10 or 11 days, somewhere around there. I know she says in the movie 11, but I think it is 10 or 11 days, legitly.
And I know that you noticed that the teacher in the movie is a certain somebody.
Yeah. In this, it's kind of
first. We'll set up the scene right quick. Tina just gets done dying. Nancy is going to school, and her father sets her up and follows her, and she talks to Rod. Rod sneaks up and talks to her. So Nancy's like, "You used me." So her dad's like, "What are you doing going to school anyway? Stay your little fucking ass at home."
Right.
So she goes to school, and she's already tired. She's already just gone through this crazy ass mess. She's in class, in English class, getting everything set up for you, and her teacher has the floor, and the teacher is
actually the same woman who plays in Insidious, actually, which her name is Lynn Shay. And it's kind of funny on how, actors that are slightly known or pretty well known today, back then, it's just another face in the crowd. Which, honestly, I thought it was funny that in most of these movies we've been watching, it's kind of a par thing for them to have a classroom setting, if you will.
I wonder if there's any relation to the producer, actually, yes. Robert Shay.
There is. And that's part of the reason she was actually in the movie.
Or she's his wife.
I'm not sure if wife or sister or cousin or something like that, but I know there is. They are close. I do know that. 100%.
Anyway, we have to mention Robert Shay in this thing because with Wes Craven writing and directing, a lot of people say all of it goes on him. He deserves all the credit. Not really. Sure, he deserves the credit for the writing and the directing, but if it wasn't for Robert Shay and New Line Cinema, Freddy would have never happened.
Right.
Wes Craven had put it out there for numerous studios, and I think all the ones he had taken to turned him down. But the only one who picked it up and produced it and gave him the money for it was Robert Shay and New Line Cinema.
You can make the sandwich and it can look as good as you want, but if no one takes a bite of it, it's not getting digested. Simple as that.
And then Robert Shay picked up and produced 2, 3, 4, 5, and Freddy's Nightmare, and was actually in Freddy's
Wes Craven's
final.
movie, or-
He was actually in Freddy's Dead: The Final Nightmare. So Robert Shea was huge on Freddy. He is also the founder and CEO of New Line Cinema. So literally, Freddy is the one that put New Line Cinema on the map.
But yeah, I mean, you can have the best writers in town for that matter, and the best pitch, the best storyline, everything. But until somebody says, "Yeah, I'll work with you for that," I think that's good. It's going nowhere. Because I mean, even as we stated with Psycho, Alfred Hitchcock, not one to go with it, and then all of a sudden he's just like, "Fine, I'll put it out myself. I guess you can put your name on it, sure." But
and then I find it funny that Wes Craven wasn't even going to go with Robert Englund. He just wanted to do what a lot of other horror directors were doing in the day and just go with a stuntman to be the villain and to be Freddy. But he'd realized that Freddy has so many iconic lines. At the time they weren't iconic, but he had so many lines that he was like, I probably need an actor.
Which actually is funny that you say that. That and then that New Line Cinema is the house that Freddy built. Because in the remake, they weren't wanting to have anything to do with Robert Englund. They had asked, Robert said, "No, I think I need a bit more money to do, even just helping you out with the new Freddy and all that." So they actually came to him, and he basically said, "Yeah, I'm worth more than that." So they're like, "Oh, no, you're not. We're just going to try it without you." They tried it. They failed miserably several times with different people. They came back to him with a blank check and said, "Okay, how much is it going to take for you to help us out?" And, I find it funny that the house, I mean, if you will, for just, this purpose, the house that Freddy built basically kicked him out and then took him back because no one wanted it, or no one was good enough to be able to do it.
And you told me something that I had never heard this morning and I'd never found out, but you told me this morning that Robert Englund had certain persons sleep on his couch.
Yeah, this is a very, very funny little fact. Back in 1977, there was this small-time little movie that I don't think everybody's heard of. Probably everybody. But there was a movie called Star Wars that was about to come out. And at the time, it was only known as Star Wars, not A New Hope. But anyways, there was a certain guy named Mark Hamill that actually slept on Robert Englund's couch for a little bit of time because they were friends and he needed a place to stay. Well, Robert Englund actually was going to go to the auditions for Han Solo. And, I mean, the rest is history after that, because everybody knows who got Han Solo's true part, and everybody knows who Mark Hamill plays. So
you could almost say maybe that decision for letting Mark Hamill sleep on his couch haunted Robert Englund.
Well, I mean, or instead of that, it was a dream for Mark Hamill. I know it's kind of haunted Mark Hamill to a point, but it started a big career for Mark Hamill.
So, as we were talking about the scenes, A Nightmare on Elm Street, after the teacher wakes her, is pretty much, that teacher would put me to sleep. Heather follows the, another iconic scene, if you will, follows the sound. She hears somebody call out for Nancy, and it's Tina wrapped up in a body bag, and she runs into this hall monitor. And the hall monitor's like, "Where's your hall pass?" And Nancy's like, "Screw your pass." And I touch on that scene because next week we are covering Scream, the 1996 one.
Right.
And the principal, played by Henry Winkler, the Fonz, is hearing noises, and he looks out into the hallways and he sees this janitor wearing a red and green sweater.
Oh, that's funny.
And he looks out and sees somebody, and the janitor looks up and says, "What'd you say?" And Henry Winkler's like, "Nothing. Never mind, Fred." And that's, I think, I have to do my research, but I think the janitor is played by Wes Craven. So anyway, we'll find that out and we'll get back to you. That'll be some more interesting news we can find out and give to you next week during the Scream episode. So you said that your favorite scene would be either the Tina death scene or the Johnny Depp death scene. So what's interesting about this movie also is that the original glove that Wes Craven had made for Freddy in Nightmare on Elm Street was used for Nightmare 2, and then the director, or Robert Shea or New Line Cinema, asked if he could let them use it for 3 Dream Warriors, and he said sure, and he never got it back.
That's kind of, which honestly, what you said, I think happened. I'm not sure. I don't know, but I hope it did. And you said that Robert Englund probably has it. I don't know. Not calling him a thief or anything like that, but I think that'd be a very cool resting or ending place for it to have ended up. I really do. Like, I hope it did.
That's true. But I mean, Wes Craven should have made one to give to Robert.
Oh yeah.
But if he did give, we don't know this for sure, but if he did give it one to Robert, then Robert didn't take it. Whereas the original one,
it's kind of crazy.
And it's kind of a shame, because that should have been something that was with Wes Craven all the way up until 2 he passed.
Yeah.
But
definitely.
when you talk about horror directors, and I'm gonna put him over some more. I know we've put him over all episode, and this is kind of turning into a Wes Craven Love Fest episode. But you can do John Carpenter, you can do Tobe Hooper. There's some others out there, not that many, but when it comes to just horror movies in general, Wes Craven, I don't think it gets any better than Wes Craven. His mind and what he has, and if you go back and you look at some of the interviews that he's done for Nightmare, the man is just a genius.
Definitely.
When it comes to writing horror movies and writing, he even wrote some stuff and helped redo the remake of Last House on the Left, the one that was done in 2009.
Truthfully, it's a little interesting that you brought up Tobe Hooper, because actually Tobe Hooper directed some of the TV series of Freddy's Nightmares. So I thought that was a little interesting. I didn't remember that until you brought it up, but yeah, he actually directed some of Freddy's Nightmares, or the entire series for that matter.
What series was that on? Was that like a sci-fi, or?
I'm not sure if it was a sci-fi, but I know it was kind of like in the early 90s or late 80s. First episode debuted October 9th, 1988, and it was actually Robert Englund was in the actual. Tobe Hooper actually directed just one episode, but he was in that. But then again, there was probably 25 different directors for that matter, so quite a bit of it.
And it looks like you can probably download some of these episodes here. Freddy's Nightmares, they look like they run about an hour apiece, and it went on from 1988 to 1990.
Mm-hmm.
And it looks like you can probably buy them and download them on Amazon Prime. But talking about A Nightmare on Elm Street, what would you say is more iconic? Would you say Freddy the character, the glove, or what would you say is probably more iconic?
I mean, if we're going with this, like, to me, I think the glove is, just because, like, you know, the glove, maybe even the sweater for that matter, because if you don't, like, you can see either one separately and think, oh, that could be Freddy, and then all of a sudden it's a different character, you know, just because inspiration from that character, from Freddy. But if you see both of them, you're like, that's Freddy, 100%. That's got to be that. There's no one else. There's no one different. There's no one better. You know, you see that little hat. You see the red and green sweater. You see, I mean, even in that, for that matter, you going back to the hall monitor that was, you know, where's your hall pass? Screw your hall pass. Well, she was wearing the red and green sweater, and obviously you're like, oh, that's got to be Freddy, and you can see in Nancy's eyes, oh, was that Freddy? I don't know. Well, I'm going to see where Tina is. Which, I'm sorry, brings me to this. If I see, no matter, you know, if I see one of my friends that I know just died in a body bag talking to me with blood just puddles and puddles and puddles, like a little river of blood, I'm not following that person down to wherever they're trying to take me. I'm not going there. I'm trying to get myself awake, and I'm trying to get home to be like, look, I'm freaking out. I don't know what's going on. But then again, they are trying to get the teenage demographic of stupid kid just trying to go through life and pretty much squirrel and search for a nut.
Touching on Scream next week, that's almost what most of the characters say is like watching horror movies is dumb because it's always about a big-breasted girl who runs upstairs or runs the opposite way when she could just run out the front door.
Which I think is what's funny with that is a Scary Movie touched on that with I think Pamela Anderson literally, and yeah, I thought that was a pretty funny scene, kind of touching back to that.
So, A Nightmare on Elm Street can be purchased on Vudu. It is on Vudu. We talk about this app almost every episode. The remake is also on there, I believe. You can actually probably get them all on there. And I even think they have a double pack or a whole combo pack that you can get. I did get some negative comments a few days ago from somebody in, I want to say New Mexico or Texas. But they commented and they messaged me about how come we don't do a Friday the 13th movie. Sir, if you're listening, sorry we haven't done a sorry we haven't done a Friday the 13th film. For the simple fact that if we did the first one, we would just touch bases on pretty much Jason Voorhees, probably just a little bit, not really the mom as much as you would say. The mom was the main killer in the original Friday the 13th. And I mean, we could do 2, we could do 3, but to me, Jason is iconic, if not almost just as iconic as Freddy. They had a movie together, for goodness sake, but the films, if you were, are just not as par as some of the other horror movies out there. I mean, they're some of them are kind of unwatchable.
Now, don't get me wrong. Honestly, on top of that, kind of want to keep kind of the times, I guess you could say, going. So it's not that we don't enjoy the Friday the 13th series at all. We do. I mean, honestly, I remember one of the first true horror movies I was watching by myself, and one of the, honestly, kind of only times I was truly scared by any horror film was Freddy vs. Jason. And not that it was scary, it's just the environment and pretty much watching the movie, trying to make some tea, some hot chocolate late at night. I was alone, Dad was gone, and probably 13 years old, 12 years old at the time, and literally I was using one of the old school tea kettles, if you will, that you put on the stove and it whistles when it's done, you know. Right when someone was about to be killed, I forget the exact scene, but right when someone was about to be killed, that stupid tea kettle went off and just scared the hell out of me. Simple as that, scared the hell out of me. So definitely enjoy it. But truthfully, the next Friday the 13th in actuality would be in September of 2019. So I mean, maybe then next year, if we decide to go ahead and revamp this horror film festival, I guess you could say, for us, might do it then. But yeah, definitely enjoy it. Just didn't have a Friday the 13th on this, so it kind of was like, well, let's go ahead and do these, and kind of mapped it out already.
I literally almost was thinking about doing the 2009 version of the Friday the 13th, for the simple fact that it was kind of, they reamped and kind of rebooted 1, 2, and 3 and put it in one movie. So I almost decided to do the remake of Friday the 13th, but decided to go ahead and pass it. But we only have 2 more episodes left of the horror series, horror franchises, if you will, and then we'll be getting ready to do some November. We'll be getting into November doing some different kind of movies. But Nightmare on Elm Street, we'll touch on another scene. One of my favorite scenes was the Johnny Depp just bed scene, where he's listening to his radio, he's watching the TV, he tells his mom while he's watching the TV, and he just falls asleep. Nancy tells him not to fall asleep, and he does, and Freddy comes up and just pulls him down, and then all of a sudden the blood just pours from the bed.
It's literally just like, imagine your water hose, except for its blood, for one, and for two, imagine the thing's like at least 2 feet wide, just spewing at the same pressure, if not worse, for that matter.
And then
it's horrible.
The other scene that's kind of iconic that nobody really talks about, but to me they're kind of cool because they're just so easy to do and they didn't use a lot of money to do it, was the one where Nancy falls asleep and she's in Tina's house and Freddy comes in from the wall and pushes.
Oh, okay,
and
yeah.
all that
definitely.
was, I believe all that was just like a rubber elastic wall, and Robert Englund just pushed his way.
Which is very cool, very strange at the same time.
So that is a pretty cool scene in this movie as well. And then the bathtub scene,
yeah,
where the glove comes up from the water, and man, this movie is known for a lot of those different and iconic scenes. It's something that really not a lot of people touch on today in today's horror movies, as nobody touches dreams or any of that because I don't think there's anything you can do.
Well, I mean, on top
Nothing
of that,
else you can do.
We don't fully understand what a dream truly is, other than the subconscious pretty much imagining something. I mean, legitly, that's the only thing I know it as. But you've got, when you're asleep, you can't fight back, basically, unless you're extremely into lucid dreaming, which truly isn't 100% guarantee either that you can control your dreams from lucid dreaming. You're not in control. I mean, it's plain and simple that
Pretty much
Freddy is in control.
Pretty much what the doctor explains to her when Nancy goes and does the sleep study, and the guy's like, we don't know what a dream really is yet, and there's no way to really fight that.
And I mean, don't get me wrong, that was back in 1984. This is over, 24 years ago, and it's still the same kind of deal. But actually, no, 34 years ago.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's been a ways out there. But we'll touch on like when we did our top 5, we named off some other nightmares, and to me they don't really get any better than this.
Like the only one that can truly touch it is probably Dream Warriors, but it's still not the original nightmare. It's kind of a thing that as you go on, your dreams aren't as good as that one, because even when you try to go back to sleep, it's still, you never recover that first dream fully. So
Wes Craven nailed it here. If you're in the Oklahoma City area and want to check A Nightmare on Elm Street out on the big screen, Tuesday, October 30th, Harkins is playing A Nightmare on Elm Street. That is East Reno Avenue, Oklahoma City, Harkins Bricktown 16. We'll be playing. Also, if you want to try to get this, it'll be on CMTV Friday at 7, October 12th.
When this actually airs, that's kind of funny.
It'll be Prime Video. You can rent it for $2.99, Amazon Prime, also through the app, and then you can also buy it for $8.99. On disc, about $7.75 for DVD, the Blu-ray. And I'm surprised there hasn't been any different kind of, we'll talk about this movie now as far as the hard disc Blu-ray goes. I'm surprised there hasn't been a bigger, more amped release for this on Blu-ray. Like, it's been 4 years since the original Deadpool, I think, 4 or 3 years since it came out. There is hundreds of different copies of Deadpool.
Actually, no, just 2. 2016. 2016 was when it was released.
So it has been completely so many fresh new copies. But I'm surprised with A Nightmare on Elm Street, the kind of way and the kind of classic that it is, it really only has 2 major releases on Blu-ray, which is the original Blu-ray that first came out in 2010, and then in 2011 the box set came out. It wasn't really a box set, it was just one slip with 5 discs in it.
Right.
So as we're touching bases on A Nightmare, what would probably be your favorite character in this? Would you say the way the ending is, how Nancy just kind of thinks of him as a bad thing and he just kind of disappears? But then the other iconic scene I want to touch on is Freddy just standing straight up in the bed at the end of the movie and having the sheet over him.
That was pretty creepy, and then just slicing it, busting out, and let's go. My favorite character probably would have been Glenn. Didn't get a lot of time, but especially for a name now known as Johnny Depp, didn't get a lot of time. I thought he was pretty good. Just probably second would come. I'd probably say Nancy. I mean, if we're going away from Robert Englund, because I mean, obviously he has probably, I'd say, the best character for this movie, of course. But I'd say probably Glenn and then Nancy, just in that order.
And it's kind of crazy. We'll touch on a Dream Warriors here for a little bit. That usually the good person wins, but Nancy actually gets killed, and they write her off and they kill her off in the Dream Warriors.
I mean,
Freddy stands alone.
Sometimes it's kind of a. I think some movies need to start doing similar things to that. The bad guy always wins, because I mean it's always the feel good ending. And I'm not saying I hate those movies. I love a lot of movies that have that, but it's just the fact of that every movie has that. Well, not every movie, but the predominance of movies have that, and it's kind of where's the fresh breath of air? Like, I'm choking in this carbon monoxide, basically. So when can I open up a window to see into a different yard? You know what I mean? And there's very few movies out there that actually A, are good, B, good characters, C, do something like that. To where, and I'm not saying necessarily gory, necessarily just huge, dramatic, and thrilling, and traumatizing, or anything like that.
Because even for this film, even for all the blood they used, it wasn't really as gory as you probably would think it would be.
No, I mean, except for those two scenes, not really. I mean, I thought they got the burn mark pretty well when she burned herself to wake herself up. I thought that was pretty well done, because I mean, I've been burned, and that looks pretty close.
Some other kind of interesting notes here is that the original script, Wes Craven had Freddy as a child molester. However, the decision was made to change him into just being a child murderer to avoid accusations of exploiting a series of child molestations in California around the time and around the production, actually.
Which, I mean, is crazy on both, the thought of that and then actually happening around the same time, which, but yeah, I think that was a good switch.
Freddy, though, Freddy was rewritten as a child molester, though, in the 2010 remake.
Right, but I mean, that then, going back, that he could use his original, because A, we're a bit less sensitive now, well, on some things, and then B, I don't think there has been as many child molestations in these days, but I mean, they're still around. It's not an uncommon thing. It's just heartbreaking that it actually still happens, but...
And then to end the little interesting movie tidbits, as we usually call it, Wes Craven first came up with the base of the idea for the movie from a series of articles in the LA Times over a 3-year period about a group of Southeast Asian refugees from the tribe, from who several have died in their horrific nightmares. The group had come to the U.S. to escape murders, reigns of Pol Pot within a year of surviving. So 3 men had died and 2 children had died as well.
Dang. Which, I mean, just says, sometimes... Well, I mean, okay, touching on dreams. Everybody's had that dream to where you go and you jerk all awake because, you've... I don't know... You're falling in the dream and all of a sudden you jerk awake, or you are... Let's say you're getting beat up or about to be killed or something like that. Everybody's had that dream to where they've just jerked awake, and it's just, you still remember it. You remember it very vividly, very, very, very well, and it almost seems like it really, truly actually happened to you. Everybody's had that, and this kind of touches on that. And I think in the subconscious mindset, you leave the theater going, Could Freddy actually be real? Could he do something? Oh my God!
If not Freddy, almost could you have something so horrific happen to you in a dream to where maybe it shoots you into cardiac arrest?
Yeah, definitely.
Heart failure. But Wes Craven had mentioned and stated that none of the people in Southeast Asia had died from heart failure or
Right.
heart attack. So it was just one of those
Which actually, going on another thing, you had mentioned what Wes Craven got the inspiration for Freddy himself. Back apparently when he was a kid, he was bullied by a guy.
when he was in college.
Oh, in college. Okay.
College bullied by a guy who had, and his name was Fred. So,
which is kind of funny, but you know.
But as we get ready to end today's episode, I think I'm going to, if you had to give this movie a star rating, what would you give it? IMDb gave it a 7.5. If that
Oh,
makes
okay.
sense.
I was about to say I would probably do 8.5, 8.5, then 8.5 for me out of 10. Just because I thought this was well done, especially on a $1.8 million budget. I thought it was well acted. It actually brought a lot of different good actors onto the scene, and actresses for that matter. And you can't really see, like I said, the glove, the red and green sweater, without it being something along those lines of Freddy Krueger, A Nightmare on Elm Street, or something like that. So going back with that and touching on that, it's just kind of funny how these things that someone makes, and I mean honestly, you could have made this character in a dream, like you had a dream and then modified the character a little bit because you didn't remember everything of it, and you could literally take it, mold it into something like this. And I mean, as long as you use that central character as a building block or a foundation for a house, if you will, I mean, you could have gold on your hands. It just doesn't have a lot of bad things in it, I don't think.
I would have to go ahead and give it a solid 8. This is one of my favorite movies to watch this time of year. Probably, without a doubt, this is my favorite Wes Craven movie of all time. Maybe. I might have something to say about that after next week. But to me, man, Nightmare on Elm Street is just creepy. Something that haunts you, or somebody that haunts you in your dreams. Like I said, Wes Craven is just the master of horror movies to me. I enjoyed this one. I almost enjoyed it just as much as Halloween last week. So
Definitely.
But as we get ready to put a bow on this episode, is there anything else that you can think of that we can cover or talk about Freddy?
Other than what we're going forward with, no, not really. I think we did enough of a justification for it. Definitely got to give the respect out to it. If you've never seen it, go ahead and go and rent it, buy it. Like we said, we mentioned, there's one in the theaters on October 30th.
It might even be on Netflix.
True. Even the remake. I mean, the remake I don't think is as good as the original.
No, it's dog shit.
I mean, even just to get a little bit of a sense of what Freddy is, even watch that. But definitely, go out, get it, and enjoy. I mean, honestly, put the popcorn on, or get a bag of M&Ms or Reese's, or your Reese's Pieces, or your favorite candy, and hey, chill. Get you a little first date night with your girl, whatever have you.
It's definitely not on Hulu or Netflix, but you can, like I said, you can rent it on Amazon Prime for $2.99. So as we put a bow on all things Freddy and A Nightmare on Elm Street, go check it out. Go rent it. Go buy it. I've seen it at Walmart for $5. I've seen the first 3 or 4 in a small slipcase box set for $10. So go check it out. It is definitely worth the watch, especially this time of year.
Oh yeah, just to have that little any time of year for that matter.
Next week, we touch on all things Wes Craven's 1996 Scream. This movie, for it being made in the 90s, is one of those movies that it changed a horror genre forever. It changed the way you think about horror movies as a fan. It changed the way you go and just think about going to somebody else's house for a huge party. Scream is, to me, the horror movie of the 90s. I don't think there's any other movie. I am up for debate. Find me, talk to me, Facebook search Movie Reels 405, Podbean comment. I've been getting messages through my Podbean like crazy. I've actually gotten 15 Podbean messages in the past 2 weeks. So I don't know why or how I'm getting more Podbean followers than I am on Facebook and YouTube, but talk to us. Find us. Facebook search Movie Reels 405. To me, Scream is the horror movie of the 90s.
Definitely.
We might get into some debate about that next week. We'll get some more information gathered, and where you can get some information gathered up as well if you want to.
Oh, yeah.
But to me, I mean, Scream had everything. It had romance, it had bromance, it had comedy, it had horror, it had everything you want in a movie.
Cock and balls.
It had some of that as well.
I think we're going to edit that out.
But written and directed by Wes Craven as well, Scream 1996 started a whole new genre of
horror and slasher and just blood, guts, and ass. Like,
the thing I liked about Scream the most is it's horror fans doing the crime here.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I mean, honestly, what's crazy, it's actually brought up in the reality that people have really done this now. I mean, I've heard of a story of one guy saying, I am the real Michael Myers, after he, I think, murdered his parents or his mother and sister. I don't know.
So since 1996, there has been a lot of murder trials about people blaming their crime on the movies.
Music even.
So,
which, don't get me wrong, I'm sorry, but if you do that because of any of that, then you can't separate reality and fiction, non-fiction and fiction. And to me, that's a little bit of a sad take, because then, you know, you don't get any more of those. You don't get any more of the, you know, new, fresh ideas, because people are going to be like, oh, well, no, we're not going to do that because it's going to inspire a new birth of all this other stuff. So, you know, keep sane, keep well, protect, love, and just try and help each other instead of hinder, instead of being dicks, basically. It's a good little Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood ending to the show. A little bit, but hey, you know, I want to see more of these films. I like these films. I want to see more in the future, and I don't want, you know,
you don't want directors to be you don't want directors to be afraid to do them because of stuff like that. And that's a good point. And next week, with Scream being the kind of movie it is, we'll touch up on some more stuff like that, and we'll touch up on some real life murder trials where people are blaming the movies, because that's all what Scream is. And it's got a backstory. It's got a hell of a franchise. To me, Scream might be one of the only ones where 2, 3, and 4 all got thumbs up on Rotten Tomatoes.
Well, I mean, on top of that, you've got to figure it has broadly actually stemmed out with several spin-offs in a way. I mean, Scary Movie does quite a bit with Scream in itself. You've got, you know, the new TV adaptation series, Scream,
that's
for
true.
that matter. So
it did get some praise. It wasn't as good as people might have thought it would be in the beginning, but did get some praise. But Scream, to me, next week is almost going to be as big and long of an episode as Halloween was.
Right.
So next week, expect a long, lengthy, full of info about Scream. It'll probably be about an hour and a half to an hour and 45-minute show.
Which, especially after, 22 years after, I think?
1996.
96, yeah, 22 years after. So, yeah, I mean, go from there, and
then
gotta love it.
We'll look ahead right quick. We went ahead and mapped out the rest of the shows for the rest of the year.
And I've got to say, I'm excited about this. I think we've got a good little lineup, a good little look ahead at this is going to be awesome to me. So
our next 2 weeks are going to finish out our horror franchise movies, which we will do Scream, which will air next Friday, will be the 19th, and then we will round up and round out and finish off with Halloween 2018.
Definitely.
Will be your final episode and your final Friday in October. And then November, we are going to kick it off with the original Indiana Jones film.
Oh,
and
yeah.
That's a movie you said you've never seen.
Well, I mean, I've just never... Truthfully, it's not that I don't like them, it's just I've never had the opportunity and actually been able to take it, I guess you'd say. Like, whenever it's came on, had to go somewhere, had to do something else. And
Gotcha.
all these years,
And then it's just
weird.
been one of those that you really probably don't have the interest to find and put in and
Kinda,
sit
yeah.
and watch. So,
On top of that, I do remember that your dad actually was a huge Indiana Jones.
I never enjoyed
fan.
Indiana Jones until, quite frankly, my dad started to pass away and he got a little sick. And then to me, Indiana Jones is just it's a really good movie. It's about a guy who goes and we'll just edit this out.
Yeah, definitely.
So,
Adventure.
episode 2, or at November 2nd, we will cover Indiana Jones. November 9th, we will cover The Goonies, little Richard
Which-
Donner film there.
The Truffle Shuffle.
And then November 16th, we are going to get ready for Fantastic Beasts 2 in theaters. Comes out that day, so we will cover everything Fantastic Beasts and where to find them before you can go see the second one. And then the next week, it's the same thing. November 23rd, we are going to cover Creed 1, the original Creed, so you can get ready to go see Creed 2, which comes out in theaters that weekend as well.
Right.
And then, to round out November, we're going to go ahead and cover Rocky, the original Rocky film, written by Sylvester Stallone, and what better way to end November with that classic?
Which, I mean, touching on, the first one
Raiders of the Lost Ark?
passed, yeah, definitely. 1936, archaeologist adventure basically goes and is hired by the government, actually, the United States government, to find the Ark of the Covenant. To find the Ark of the Covenant before the Nazis obtain its awesome powers. So,
And
looking
then-
forward to that.
Starting off in December, this is probably the movie of all movies
Oh, yeah.
to kick us off for December. We're going to do 8 Crazy Nights. Adam Sandler's 8 Crazy Nights, that is. I enjoy everything there is to enjoy about Adam Sandler.
Oh, yeah.
And what way to start December off than with 8 Crazy Nights. And then December 14th, we will cover Justice League the week before Aquaman comes out in theaters. That'll be a lengthy show as well, as we will have pretty much a conversation about Justice League, Suicide Squad, Batman vs. Superman, all things DC
Definitely.
in this new cinematic universe. We will be talking about December the 14th. And then December the 21st is going to be our Christmas episode. What Christmas movie did you want to cover that day?
Truthfully, I kind
Or
of
pretty much what Christmas movie did you pick for us?
kind of an old school classic for me. The Santa Claus, Tim Allen.
So Tim Allen's Santa
gotta love
Claus.
it. I mean, hey.
We'll be covering that movie as well. In the same episode, we will be covering A Christmas Story. So Ed picked his Christmas movie, I picked mine.
Yep.
We are going to watch both of them, dissect both Christmas movies, and then probably have a top 5 of top 5 Christmas movies to give for you there. And then we're going to end out the year in Pulp Fiction for December 28th.
Which I'm going to say, Pulp Fiction is one of my favorite movies because, I'm sorry, but kind of curved my, I guess you could call it, language barrier. I mean, Samuel L. Jackson curved my language barrier. I know my wife, who will probably listen to that episode and this episode, definitely knows about my language barriers and areas, I guess you could say. Love you, hon.
Which actually was your pick. You picked Pulp Fiction. As soon as you said that, I'm like, I'm in. Anything Quentin Tarantino, I can do Quentin Tarantino all day.
Well, I was trying to think of something that would be good, interesting, and a kind of a classic film. Because, okay, when I was a kid, I'd never seen Pulp Fiction until I was probably 19, 20 years old. And it's just the fact that I thought it was a boring-ass adult movie. I didn't know what it was about. All I knew was Samuel L. Jackson and John Travolta. I was like, John Travolta, that's the guy from Grease. I was like, okay, I like that, but I don't know if I want to watch that.
It's funny, Travolta's really not in it as much as you think he is.
Not as much, no. And, you know, I didn't know Bruce Willis was in it, and I didn't know a lot about it at all. I just thought it was a boring old, you know, movie. So I was like, I'm not watching that crap. Whatever, it's whatever. And I just watched probably 15 minutes of a clip of it, you know, on the last of it on TV one day. And I was like, oh, wow, this is totally different than what I thought. So I was like, you know what? Screw it. I'm going out and getting the movie and watched it. And I was like, man, I was an idiot for not watching that.
Yeah.
Love it now.
It's interesting. It's good. It's we were going to be covering the Collector's Series. Quentin Tarantino picks the Collector's Edition that's on Blu-ray. So those are the shows that we have mapped out for you the next 2 months. That ends the month of December. That ends the year for us with Pulp Fiction, and I think we can wrap a bow on this episode.
Okay.
So as we finish up this episode, don't forget, follow us, like us, Facebook search Movie Reels 405. That's Facebook search Movie REELZ 405 as we get ready to talk about Scream 1996 next week. This is it. We are done. He is Edward Silverscreen.
That's Johnny Real right there.
And ladies and gentlemen, we will see you next week when
Signing
we
out.
talk all about 1996 Scream right here on the Cine-Men Movie Podcast.